This administration spends a lot of time telling us how they're not the Nazi party, they're not the party of white supremacy, and they are telling us to not believe our own ears and eyes. Here is a great report from PBS. Let's take a look.
Just weeks into the new year, the Trump administration has surged ICE agents to American cities, overthrown a foreign head of state, threatened a military takeover of Greenland, and rewritten the history of January 6th. As Liz Landers reports, the administration has rolled out a campaign across departments that draws on images and ideas borrowed from right-wing and white nationalist circles.
From the U.S. Department of Labor, a message. One homeland, one people, one heritage. Remember who you are, American. It's a video that appears to be part of a campaign now ramping up to sell the administration's efforts to the American people. For example, calling on potential ICE recruits to, quote, defend the homeland from outsiders while featuring heroic images of white men, often from a bygone era. Then there's this tweet from Friday, an ICE recruitment ad featuring the turn of phrase, "We'll have our home again," plastered over an image of a man on horseback and a stealth bomber flying in the distance. That's a reference to the song "We'll Have Our Home Again," a white supremacist anthem favored by the Proud Boys.
Oh my God, we'll have our home again. My God, we'll have our home.
Another image tells supporters to, quote, trust the plan, the slogan of the right-wing conspiracy theory known as QAnon, which posits there's a global cabal of pedophiles and deep state actors trafficking children and that Trump is fighting it. It's also a movement heavily involved in the insurrection on January 6, 2021. Last week, the Trump administration published a new website rewriting that history to blame Democrats for security failures that day and to justify the president's pardoning of more than 1,500 defendants. Weighing in on another era, last week President Trump also sat for a lengthy interview with the New York Times. He was asked about the civil rights movement and told reporters that while the landmark legislation did some good things, he said, quote, it also hurt a lot of people that deserve to go to a college or deserve to get a job were unable to get a job. So it was a reverse discrimination. A day later, Trump supporter and billionaire Elon Musk wrote 100 above this message on X, which read in part, quote, if white men become a minority, we will be slaughtered. White solidarity is the only way to survive. That's known as the Great Replacement Theory, popular in white nationalist circles that falsely claims the white population is being intentionally replaced by non-whites.
And one thing I'm surprised that they didn't include was this tweet by DHS from a couple of weeks ago saying the peace of a nation no longer besieged by the third world. And here we can see a nice peaceful beach with a retro car, nice painting here, saying America after 100 million deportations. The only problem with this is there's only about 45 million foreign-born people in the United States. So this message is essentially implying that they're going to deport 55 million U.S. citizens. So kind of right in line with what we've been seeing with ICE, with all these citizens arrests. And just a side note here, they actually got community noted on this tweet because they stole a Japanese artist's picture without his permission to make this tweet. I think the warning signs have been there for a while. You know, we had little previews of it going back to even when we saw Elon Musk Sig Heil, and people thought, nah, he didn't really do that. And then the whole Mecha Hitler situation with Grok, and it's like, oh no, that was, you know, blah, blah, blah. Always excuses. But when you see evidence before your eyes, very, very strong evidence, we see far-right groups like the Oath Keepers, like the 3%ers, all supporting and now working for ICE, all the insurrectionists that Trump pardoned, a lot of these within white supremacist groups. It's like, at what point do we start believing the things that we're seeing and believing the things that we're hearing? It's been a pretty strong gaslighting operation over here, but I think the signs are crystal clear. What do you think, Mike?
Well, I think you're right. This is no secret. This has been kind of leading up. Even before Trump was elected, he was quoting Hitler in some of his speeches, calling the press the enemy within, and his political opponents as well. The enemy within, that's a Hitler quote. You also had him calling immigrants, saying that they were poisoning the blood of our country. That's another Hitler quote. And there's even been old reports dating back to like the 90s where I remember one of his wives was interviewed, and she talked about how he kept like a book of like Hitler and World War II stuff on his nightstand. So this is no secret. He has an admiration for dictators. I mean, look at his behavior for how he treats Putin and Kim Jong-un and things like this. So he does have like a dictator fascination. He's got this obsession with all the gold trim and the military prestige and the pageantry and the very forceful, like overly excessive force. That's all Trump to a T. So with that said, it's one thing for Trump to be Trump and to do those behaviors. It's another thing for actual departments to mirror that behavior. So now we've got these departments coming out literally using KKK and Nazi slogans, which is just crazy. That people can look at this and say, "Oh, well, they're not." I know the left calls us Nazis, but it's a misrepresentation. But they're literally using slogans. So, and Elon Musk, he was a Trump administration official, and he was, as we just saw, he's retweeting things about white supremacy and this replacement theory and whatnot. In addition to all of that, outside of the Trump administration, you have other Republicans that we've had multiple stories come out in the last few months. You had the Young Republicans group chat that got leaked, where they were saying several racist things, including joking and bragging about sending people to gas chambers. Then you had in Dave Taylor's office, Ohio representative, Republican representative, one of his staffers was on a Zoom call with an American flag behind him that has a swastika on it. That's in the office, pinned to the wall in his cubicle in the office. And he's doing official business Zoom calls with that behind him. And then you also had Paul Ingrassia, who says he has a Nazi streak in him. And he's not kidding when confronted about it. He says, "I'm not kidding." So, time and time again, you've got multiple Republicans doing this. And I think the saying is true, where it's not every Republican is a white supremacist, but every white supremacist is a Republican, or a Trump supporter, whatever you want to say. Because that I think is the truth of the matter is you've got these people, they do vote, they do back this party. And this goes all the way back to Trump's debates, where he was asked on stage, like, do you denounce white supremacy? Can you just denounce it here publicly? Like, please, we just want you to denounce this. And Trump kind of stammered and, like, what do I even say? Like, how do I say this? And they had to like hand walk him through it and say, like, okay, can you just say, stand down? And he's like, oh, stand back, stand by, which is not stand down. And of course, the Proud Boys even took that quote and made merch from it, saying, "We're standing by, sir." Like, it's crazy. So you've got all of that stuff baked into this. But then if we talk about the actual tweets themselves that they're sending, as you mentioned, this like stolen artwork and this 100 million deported people post, that's also like the math is wrong there, or at least there's a strong implication there that they're going to come after U.S. citizens and deport U.S. citizens and whatnot. Then there's the one with the horseback and the stealth bomber. Like, for me personally, I feel like if you've got stealth bombers flying over you in your own country, that doesn't exactly paint a picture of like a peaceful country. If it's just a guy on the horseback enjoying the free mountain range, fine. But you've got like bombers flying over you. That's a little weird to me, a little dystopian. You've got the QAnon post where they said trust the plan, and it literally says trust Trump right after that. That's very bizarre, very high propaganda to me. I mean, again, as always, imagine if Biden was posting tweets in his administration saying trust Biden. That it just feel like for them to tell you, hey, trust me, it's weird. Trust is earned, not dictated. And then you've got the rewriting of January 6th. We've seen the Trump administration rewrite history plenty of times, from the White House plaques to the DEI scrubbing of the websites to the firing of people, all kinds of things. So when you combine all of that with this administration, where they're clearly set on expanding the empire, they want to take over other countries, similar again to Germany. And they're also pushing violent rhetoric. You had Stephen Miller, this old clip of him resurfacing where he's talking about how torture is like a good thing and we should be doing it and whatnot. And then you have Steve Bannon, who also did a Sig Heil at, I believe it was CPAC, I think it was. And you've got people just not, like, you see it with your eyes, you hear it with your ears, and there's just this total reality warp shutdown that's happening that we have never really seen before. We saw it right after January 6th, but even right after January 6th, a lot of Trump's hardest supporters were coming out condemning it. And now they're all sort of buying into this like warped reality. So it's very strange. I don't know what else to tell you though, Manuel. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, trust Trump. Trust him to what? Mexico is going to pay for the wall. Do we trust him there? We're in Venezuela because it's about drugs. Do we trust him there? China is going to pay for the tariffs. So do we trust him there? Releasing the Epstein files. Did we trust him on that? Addressing the economic problems that he failed to do. Did we trust him on that? The $2,000 stimulus checks. He was just asked about that a couple of days ago. And he's like, when did I do that? When did I promise that? How do people have any trust for this man? It continues to blow my mind how the biggest gaslighter, the biggest con man continues to deceive people, and they still are being propagandized into trusting him. This man, I don't think, has told the truth 3 times in his life, and he continues to just march forward and blast through all the executive and legislative and all the checks and balances that we once had in this country, tearing them down. And there's really, he's creating a system where we cannot trust him because he has full control and full authority. I mean, he is fully marching into dictatorship mode. And as we've seen with these Venezuelan strikes, they did this whole operation without any authorization from Congress. He tried to hide the Epstein files until Congress stepped in. Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna, bipartisan, one Democrat, one Republican, stepped forward and said, no, we need these files, release them, and we're going to mandate that by law. And thank goodness they did, because Trump wasn't going to do that. He had full authority through the DOJ to release the files, just like he did with the MLK files and the JFK files, but he chose not to do that with the Epstein files. You should ask yourself why. And here we are. We're in the situation now where, like, we have 3 more years to go. We're only a year into the second administration. ICE is invading all the cities. And it's chaos out there. We're seeing it now in Minnesota, Minneapolis. It's starting to spread, I think, to other cities. Mike, they're starting to go door to door. They're talking about using drones now. It's wild times that we live in. And we're here to cover it and show you guys what we find. And hopefully the midterms start to turn this country a little in a new direction away from all the chaos, because I think there's only so much chaos that the nation can take before it totally just blows up in our faces. So we're here for that. And midterms are starting their primaries in just a few weeks. We're definitely going to be keeping a close eye on that, because that's really the next big line of defense I think we as a democracy, as a people, have against this tyrannical authoritative regime. So we'll be there for that.